Welcome to BL Stories for You, home for the best original BL stories.
The following morning, the entire kingdom of Luminar was buzzing with excitement. The annual Cross-Kingdom Festival had not even begun, yet every street, market, teahouse, and training ground was already overflowing with conversation. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze. Merchants called out to eager customers. Travelers from every magical nation wandered through the beautifully decorated streets, while young children ran around pretending to be the famous warriors and mages they hoped to watch compete over the coming weeks. But despite all the excitement surrounding the festival, there was only one topic everyone seemed to be talking about. The Emperor of Umbraeth. It had started as nothing more than a whisper among palace servants. One servant told another. Before long, the story had escaped the palace walls and spread through the capital like wildfire. People gathered in small groups, eagerly exchanging rumors. I heard the Emperor of Umbraeth arrived yesterday. That's impossible. Stop making things up. How could anyone from Umbraeth cross the cursed barrier? I heard he even attended the royal meeting. No. You're exaggerating. Another person laughed loudly. The cursed barrier has existed for centuries. No one from Umbraeth can leave during the day. Everyone knows that. So unless the gods themselves removed the curse, there is absolutely no way their emperor is here. Several people immediately nodded in agreement. Exactly. Those are just ridiculous rumors. Others, however, weren't so convinced. One elderly merchant stroked his beard thoughtfully. But what if it's true? The people around him looked at him. He lowered his voice. If someone really managed to cross that barrier, wouldn't that change everything? The crowd fell quiet. That single question was enough to make everyone think. Meanwhile, inside the Royal Magic Academy, the rumors had reached the students as well. The academy was one of the most prestigious institutions in Luminar, where the kingdom's brightest young mages, scholars, physicians, and magical researchers trained together. Groups of students could be seen gathered beneath towering ancient trees, inside lecture halls, and around the training arenas. Naturally, the rumor became the hottest topic of discussion. One young mage burst into laughter. The Emperor of Umbraeth? Please. People will believe anything. His friend nodded confidently. It has to be fake. The barrier has never failed. It's one of the oldest divine curses recorded in magical history. No human can simply walk through it. Another student folded his arms. Maybe someone is pretending to be him. That's what I think too. It wouldn't be the first time someone impersonated royalty. Several students laughed. Tutor René happened to overhear them as he walked past. He stopped for a moment before saying thoughtfully, "Don't dismiss every rumor so quickly." The students immediately became quiet. The professor adjusted his robes. History has a habit of surprising those who think they already know everything. With that cryptic remark, he continued walking, leaving the students exchanging puzzled looks. Elsewhere, among the kingdom's nobles and influential families, the discussions were no different. Some dismissed the rumors outright. Others quietly instructed their servants to investigate. If the Emperor of Umbraeth had truly entered Luminar, it wasn't merely shocking. It would become one of the greatest historical events the world had ever witnessed. Back at the Royal Magic Academy, a group of senior students had gathered near one of the sparring grounds. One young woman crossed her arms thoughtfully. I don't know whether the rumors are true, but I hope they are. Her friends looked at her in surprise. You actually want them to be true? She nodded. I've heard stories about Emperor Kaenar ever since I was little. They say he defeated monsters before he even became an adult. They say he mastered swordsmanship, martial arts, and magic. They say no one has ever managed to beat him in combat. Another student scoffed. Stories always become exaggerated. Every kingdom likes making its rulers sound invincible. Exactly. Someone else joined in. If he really comes, we'll finally get to see whether he's as terrifying as the legends claim. The group fell silent. Each of them pictured a different version of the mysterious emperor. Some imagined a giant covered in scars. Others imagined a ruthless warrior with a face as cold as ice. Some even whispered that he wasn't entirely human anymore after surviving the curse of Umbraeth for so many years. The mystery only made people more curious. Whether they believed the rumors or not. One question lingered in everyone's mind. If the Emperor of Umbraeth had truly crossed the cursed barrier, just what kind of man was Kaenar? And more importantly, was he really as powerful and terrifying as the stories claimed? As the day before the opening of the Cross Kingdom Festival drew to a close, an air of anticipation settled over Luminar. Everyone understood that once the festival officially began, there would be no room for carelessness. Every representative carried the pride of their kingdom on their shoulders. Victory wasn't just about personal glory. It was about bringing honor to the nation they represented. So while the streets outside were filled with music, dancing, and celebration, the competitors themselves were preparing in their own ways. Far away, on a towering mountainside overlooking Luminar, Xianxia stood alone. The icy wind whipped through his long dark hair as he gripped his spear tightly. With a sharp breath, he lunged forward. His movements were swift, powerful, and incredibly precise. Each strike split the freezing air with a sharp whistle. He leaped onto a massive boulder before launching himself into the air, spinning gracefully as his spear carved elegant arcs through the sky. Below him, several enormous mountain beasts watched silently. Instead of attacking him, they simply lowered their heads in acknowledgement. The warriors of Xianlong did not dominate beasts. They earned their respect. Xianxia landed effortlessly. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. Tomorrow, he murmured, I'll finally meet worthy opponents. A faint smile appeared on his face. Elsewhere, inside one of the palace gardens, Long Mo sat beneath a flowering tree. Unlike the others, there was no sign of physical training. A porcelain teapot rested beside him. He calmly poured himself another cup. Without looking up, he lazily flipped another page of the ancient book resting in his lap. The floating ink brush beside him danced through the air as though it possessed a mind of its own, occasionally writing glowing symbols before dissolving into streams of black light. Princess Feng Yu knelt gracefully upon a silver prayer mat. Around her, dozens of temple maidens quietly chanted ancient celestial hymns. Their silver robes shimmered like flowing water. Feng Yu remained perfectly still. With every slow breath she took, the moonlight around her seemed to pulse gently. Tiny glowing butterflies formed from pure lunar energy fluttered around the chamber before dissolving into sparkling dust. One maid whispered, "The princess's spiritual energy has become even purer." Feng Yu slowly opened her eyes. Her calm expression never changed. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "may the heavens guide everyone toward balance." At the residence of Prince Jariel, the rhythmic sound of metal echoed through the courtyard. Jariel's sword moved with astonishing speed. His magical aura flowed through the blade, leaving streaks of golden light with every swing. Sweat rolled down his forehead. Even after hours of training, he refused to stop. One servant approached cautiously. "Your Highness, you've been practicing since sunrise. You should rest." Jariel lowered his sword. "There will be time to rest after the festival." His expression hardened. "I cannot afford to lose." Meanwhile, deep beneath another residence, Prince Draken stood inside a dark underground chamber. The room was lit only by flickering crimson flames. An elderly witch slowly walked around him, chanting strange incantations under her breath. Black smoke curled around Draken's body. Suddenly, flames erupted from beneath his feet. The fire climbed around him like living serpents. Instead of burning him, it strengthened him. The old witch smiled, revealing crooked yellow teeth. The fire spirits accept you. Draken closed his eyes. They'll have to. He clenched his fists. This year, I won't lose to anyone. The flames around him exploded even brighter. Elsewhere, inside the ancestral hall of Minister Xian's family, Xianxia stood in the center of countless twisting vines. Ancient magical symbols glowed beneath her feet. She raised both hands. Immediately, the vines shot upward like giant serpents, wrapping around towering stone pillars before crashing back down. Her control over plant magic had become frighteningly precise. Watching from the entrance, her father sighed quietly. His eyes weren't filled with pride. Only sadness. He looked at his daughter for a long moment before whispering. When did you become so obsessed with winning? Xianxia never answered. She simply continued practicing, as though nothing else mattered. Meanwhile, back at the manor, General Gator and Polar sat outside beneath a wooden golden pavilion overlooking the lake. Between them rested several empty wine bottles. General Gator laughed loudly after taking another drink. I have to admit, Luminar certainly knows how to make wine. Polar simply chuckled, but his mind was elsewhere. Much later that night, the palace grounds became completely silent. Only the chirping of crickets and the gentle sound of flowing water filled the air. Near the lake separating the two neighboring manors, Kaenar stood alone. His eyes were closed. Dark red spiritual energy slowly gathered around him. The water beneath his feet began to ripple without being touched. Leaves floated upward into the air. His cultivation aura expanded steadily, growing stronger with every passing second. Then, his eyes suddenly opened. Someone's here. He frowned slightly. A faint rustling sound echoed from nearby bushes. Kaenar immediately concealed his aura. Silently, he followed the sound, carefully stepping between the trees. He eventually stopped. His expression softened. Standing beside the lake, holding a single candle in one hand and a bundle of incense in the other, was Aarhiya. The prince walked slowly toward a small stone altar near the water. He carefully placed the candle down before lighting the incense. Thin streams of fragrant smoke drifted into the cool night air. Then, he knelt. Joining his hands together, he closed his eyes and began praying quietly. The candlelight illuminated his gentle features. The peaceful scene made him appear almost ethereal. Kaenar couldn't help smiling. For several moments, he simply watched. Not with suspicion, but admiration. He really takes his duties seriously. Kaenar quietly turned around. I shouldn't disturb him. He had barely taken 2 steps, when Aarhiya's calm voice suddenly echoed across the lake. You don't have to hide anymore. Kaenar froze. Aarhiya slowly opened his eyes. I've been able to sense someone's presence for a while now. He smiled gently. If you're not an enemy, you may as well come out. Kaenar let out a quiet sigh. So much for leaving unnoticed. Stepping out from behind the trees, he smiled sheepishly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spy on you. Aarhiya looked surprised for only a second before smiling warmly. It's all right. I know you weren't. Kaenar blinked. You seem very certain. Aarhiya immediately realized what he'd said. His heart skipped a beat. I mean. He laughed awkwardly. You're an emperor. I just don't think someone like you would secretly spy on people. Kaenar studied him for a moment before smiling. I'll take that as a compliment. Aarhiya smiled back, relieved that Kaenar hadn't questioned him further. Trying to change the subject, Kaenar glanced at the burning incense. Do you come here every midnight? Aarhiya nodded. I started after preparations for the festival began. As Luminar's oracle, it's my responsibility to pray for everyone's safety. The competitors. The guests. The kingdom. I ask the heavens to bless them all. Kaenar folded his arms thoughtfully. That sounds exhausting. Aarhiya laughed softly. It is. There are days when I barely sleep. There are days when I don't even have time to eat properly. But his smile became gentler. I've never regretted it. Kaenar listened quietly. My late mother, Aarhiya continued, was the oracle before me. Although I didn't know her personally, I admired her more than anyone. When I was little, I always dreamed of following in her footsteps. He looked toward the stars. So becoming the oracle was my greatest wish. His voice gradually became quieter. But lately, he smiled sadly. I've realized there's something that I treasure even more. Without realizing it, Kaenar slowly stepped closer. The distance between them disappeared. His eyes searched Aarhiya's face. And what is it? He asked softly. Aarhiya slowly turned toward him. The moment their eyes met, his heart completely fell apart. The man he longed for. The man he had cried for. The man he would sacrifice everything for, was standing right in front of him. Yet, he couldn't tell him the truth. His vision blurred. Before he knew it, a tear escaped down his cheek. Inside his heart, only one answer echoed. You. It's always been you. Kaenar immediately noticed the tear. His expression filled with concern. Prince Aarhiya. What happened? Without thinking, he gently reached out. His fingers were only inches away from Aarhiya's face. Instinctively, Aarhiya stepped back. He lowered his head quickly. Sorry. There was. He forced a smile. Just something in my eye. Kaenar didn't look convinced. You don't have to lie to me. I'm not lying. Aarhiya quickly wiped away the tears. I'm alright. Silence settled between them. Kaenar wanted to ask more. But looking at Aarhiya's trembling smile, he decided against it. Very well. He smiled gently. I'll leave you to your prayers. Aarhiya bowed slightly. Thank you. Kaenar gave him one last concerned look before quietly walking away into the darkness. Aarhiya remained kneeling. He waited until Kaenar completely disappeared from sight. Only then did the smile vanish from his face. Fresh tears streamed silently down his cheeks. He clasped his trembling hands together as though continuing his prayer. But no words came. Instead, he cried quietly beneath the moonlight, praying, not for the success of the festival, but for how long he can keep up the facade. At long last, the day everyone had been waiting for arrived. The first day of the Cross-Kingdom Festival. From the earliest hours of the morning, Luminar was already alive with excitement. The enormous royal courtyard had been transformed into a spectacular arena. Banners bearing the symbols of different kingdoms hung from the surrounding towers, fluttering proudly in the morning breeze. Golden platforms had been erected for the royal families and important guests, while thousands of spectators filled the designated viewing areas. Citizens of Luminar stood shoulder to shoulder with visitors who had traveled from distant magical kingdoms. Everyone wanted to witness the beginning of the most anticipated magical event of the year. Children sat on their parents' shoulders. Merchants shouted excitedly about festival snacks. Students from the Royal Magic Academy crowded together, arguing over which representative would win. And everywhere one looked, people were dressed in their finest clothes. Today wasn't simply a competition. It was a celebration of magic, skill, knowledge, and the alliances that connected the magical kingdoms. For the first day, the competitors would face one of the most dangerous challenges of the entire festival. The treasure hunt. The location chosen for the competition was the enormous Tensis Cave, a vast and ancient cavern situated beyond the main city. The cave was infamous. Its tunnels stretched deep beneath the earth, with some passages remaining unexplored even after centuries. There were said to be underground rivers, magical creatures, unstable cliffs, and ancient traps hidden throughout its depths. And somewhere inside was the prize. The Virgin Ring. According to an old legend, many centuries ago, a young temple maiden had received the ring from the man she loved before he went away to fight in a war. He never returned. Heartbroken, the maiden eventually lost the ring. Some versions of the story claimed it had fallen into the depths of Tensis Cave. Others insisted that she had thrown it away in grief. Whatever the truth was, the ring was never found. According to legend, the maiden died with her heart still searching for it. And afterward, her spirit supposedly wandered through Tensis Cave, endlessly looking for the precious ring her lover had given her. Of course, hardly anyone actually believed the story. Most people considered it nothing more than an old fairy tale. But that didn't stop them from enjoying it. Especially the children. I heard the ghost still screams when someone gets close to the ring. No, she doesn't. My grandmother told me she once saw her. Your grandmother says she saw everything. The children burst into laughter. Even some of the adults couldn't help smiling. The Virgin Ring wasn't the only legendary treasure associated with the competition. During the previous festival, competitors had supposedly discovered the ancient records of a magical scholar who was believed to have lived for more than 300 years. The records had apparently contained knowledge that had been lost for generations. Again, many people dismissed the story as nonsense. But that was the beauty of the treasure hunt. Nobody knew what they might discover. As the crowd continued talking, a sudden hush spread through the courtyard. The royal entrance had opened. King Aurelius stepped into the courtyard. Beside him walked Aarhiya, dressed in magnificent ceremonial robes. Advisor Louis followed closely behind them, accompanied by several royal elders and officials. The crowd immediately rose. Cheers erupted throughout the courtyard. Aarhiya smiled politely as he looked across the enormous gathering. Although he was still recovering from the poisoning, he had insisted on attending the opening ceremony. This was his kingdom. His people. His festival. And today, he had a duty to fulfill. The king and Aarhiya took their places upon the royal platform. A ceremonial brazier stood before them. Aarhiya stepped forward. The courtyard gradually became silent. He raised his hand. A small flame appeared between his fingers. With a calm movement, he transferred the flame into the ceremonial brazier. Whoosh! Golden fire erupted from the basin. The crowd erupted into cheers. The Cross-Kingdom Festival had officially begun. A moment later, Tutor René walked into the center of the courtyard. He raised his hand. The crowd gradually quieted. People of Luminar. His voice carried clearly throughout the courtyard. Honored royals, esteemed guests, distinguished scholars, warriors, mages, and representatives of the great kingdoms. The crowd cheered. Welcome to the annual Cross-Kingdom Festival. The applause became deafening. René smiled before continuing. And now, it is my honor to introduce the representatives who will compete for glory. The first name was announced. Representing Luminar's allied territories. The cheering began again. Then came the individual representatives. Prince Jariel. Jariel stepped forward with his escort. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Lady Sanraya Soren. People clapped hard as Sanraya confidently walked out. Next. Prince Draken. Draken walked out with confidence, his expression cold and composed. The applause grew louder. Princess Fengyu of Qinyu. Fengyu gracefully entered the arena, her silver robe shimmering beneath the sunlight. The crowd admired her elegance. Jiang Chen of Xianlong. The powerful warrior stepped forward. A roar erupted from the spectators. Long Mo of Yanjing. Long Mo calmly entered while carrying his magical ink brush. He looked almost completely uninterested in the enormous crowd cheering for him. Several more representatives followed. Then, a mysterious figure stepped forward. Xianxia. The announcement caused some murmuring. Xianxia walked onto the platform without saying a word. His dark clothing and unreadable expression immediately made him stand out. Some spectators whispered among themselves. Who is he? I heard he's incredibly skilled. He looks terrifying. Xianxia simply stood there. Waiting. But even he wasn't the person most people were waiting to see. The excitement in the crowd continued building. Everyone knew who was coming next. The name that had dominated conversations across Luminar for days. The name many still refused to believe would actually be called. Tutor Rene looked down at the scroll in his hand. He paused. The courtyard became strangely quiet. Then he lifted his head. And now. His voice became solemn. For the first time in centuries. The crowd held its breath. Representing the kingdom of Umbraeth. A murmur swept through the courtyard. Emperor Kaenar. For several seconds. Nothing happened. Then the entrance opened. 3 men walked out together. Kaenar. Polar. And General Gator. The reaction was immediate. A collective gasp swept across the courtyard. People simply stared. Nobody spoke. This wasn't what they had expected. Not even remotely. The stories had painted Emperor Kaenar as a terrifying figure. A monster who ruled a cursed kingdom. A ruthless emperor who had supposedly become something less than human after spending his entire life beneath the darkness. Some rumors had even described him as horribly disfigured. But the man standing before them was nothing like those stories. Kaenar walked calmly into the arena, dressed in dark royal clothing that emphasized his imposing presence. His expression was controlled. His posture confident. And his appearance striking. Several young women in the crowd immediately began whispering. That's him. That's Emperor Kaenar. He doesn't look terrifying at all. He looks. One girl stopped herself, embarrassed. Her friend laughed. You were going to say handsome. I was not. You absolutely were. Nearby, the students of the Royal Magic Academy were even more stunned. For years, they had studied Umbraeth. They had read historical records about its emperor. They had examined paintings and descriptions of Kaenar. They had spent hours discussing the mysterious ruler they believed they would never see. And now, he was standing right in front of them. Alive. Real. And completely different from the terrifying image they had created in their minds. One student whispered. That's Emperor Kaenar. Another nodded slowly. I can't believe it. We've actually been studying him all these years. Even the academy professors looked unsettled. The arrival of Umbraeth as emperor wasn't merely unexpected. It changed everything. Kaenar continued walking until he reached his designated position. He looked across the crowd calmly. Then his eyes briefly moved toward the royal platform. And there. He saw Aarhiya. Their eyes met. Aarhiya's breath caught. For a moment, the enormous courtyard seemed to disappear. Kaenar's expression softened ever so slightly. Aarhiya quickly looked away. But the small exchange hadn't gone unnoticed by everyone. Xianxia, standing among the representatives, watched carefully. Her eyes narrowed. Something about the way Kaenar looked at Aarhiya bothered her. She couldn't explain why. The applause was still echoing through the courtyard when Tutor Rene looked down at the scroll in his hands again. There is one more representative who must be introduced. And representing Luminar on behalf of His Royal Highness. He paused. Polar. The High Dragon of Luminar. Polar stepped forward. Unlike Kaenar, he immediately looked uncomfortable with all the attention. He gave a brief bow before taking his position. Kaenar's eyes followed him. The moment he saw Polar, his expression changed. He felt he had to ask Polar something, but he was unaware what it was. Kaenar subtly moved as though he wanted to approach him. But Polar had already taken his position on the opposite side of the courtyard. Their eyes met briefly. Polar immediately looked away. Kaenar narrowed his eyes. He's avoiding me. He made a mental note to speak to him later. Before he could do anything, however, King Aurelius rose from his throne. The crowd quieted. I have an announcement to make. Aarhiya looked toward his father. Something about the king's expression made him uneasy. Aurelius looked across the gathered representatives. As everyone knows, the Cross-Kingdom Festival is not merely about competition. It is also about strengthening the bonds between our kingdoms. He paused. And this year, I have decided to offer an additional honor. Aarhiya's stomach dropped. The ultimate victor of this year's competition will be given the opportunity to marry my son, Prince Aarhiya. Silence. For perhaps 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the courtyard exploded. Gasps. Whispers. Excited voices. Some of the representatives immediately exchanged glances. Others looked toward Aarhiya. Aarhiya himself looked absolutely stunned. Father. He stood. Absolutely not. The courtyard became quiet again. Aurelius frowned. Aarhiya's face had reddened with embarrassment and frustration. I don't want to be treated like a prize that someone can win. Aarhiya, Aurelius warned. No. Aarhiya shook his head. I respect you as my king and as my father, but you cannot make this decision for me. A few people in the crowd murmured in agreement. Aurelius looked increasingly uncomfortable. Before the situation could escalate, Advisor Louis stepped forward. Your Highness is right. Aarhiya looked at him, surprised. Louis smiled pleasantly. Perhaps there is a better solution. He turned toward the king. Let Prince Aarhiya enter the competition himself. Aurelius stared at him. What? If His Highness wishes to defend his honor and prove that he is more than a prize to be won, then let him compete. Aarhiya's expression changed. Louis continued smoothly. Let him fight for himself. Aurelius immediately shook his head. You know very well that Aarhiya is still recovering from the poisoning. Louis stepped closer and lowered his voice. Your Majesty, everyone is watching. The king glanced around. Louis continued quietly. If you refuse now, they will accuse you of being a domineering father who refuses to give his own son a choice. Allow him to enter. Let the decision appear to be his. Aurelius's jaw tightened. He clearly disliked the idea. But eventually, he sighed. Very well. He looked toward Aarhiya. If you truly wish to enter, then you may. Aarhiya stared at his father. He knew exactly what had happened. This wasn't freedom. It was a trap disguised as one. Still, refusing now would only create an even bigger scene. He reluctantly stepped forward. Louis watched him with a satisfied smile. Then, almost imperceptibly, his eyes shifted toward Xianxia. Xianxia returned the look. Neither said a word. But the silent exchange was enough. Kaenar had noticed none of it. His attention was fixed on Aarhiya. He watched the prince take his place among the contestants, looking visibly unhappy. Kaenar's expression tightened. He didn't understand why seeing Aarhiya upset bothered him so much. Why do I care this much? He tried to push the thought away. It didn't work. Tutor René returned to the center of the courtyard. Now, let us explain the rules of today's treasure hunt. The crowd quieted. Each team will consist of 5 contestants from different kingdoms. A huge cheer erupted. All teams will enter Tensis Cave simultaneously. René pointed toward a large magical screen displaying an illustration of the cave. Somewhere inside lies the legendary Virgin Ring. The crowd immediately began whispering excitedly. The first team to locate the treasure will not automatically win. A few contestants groaned. René laughed. Yes, I'm afraid it isn't that simple. The audience laughed with him. Once a team finds the treasure, they must solve a final puzzle among themselves. Only one person can emerge as the ultimate victor. That earned an even louder reaction. The rules permit competition and harmless sabotage between contestants. However, deliberate injury is strictly forbidden. He raised a finger. Anyone who intentionally causes serious harm will be immediately disqualified. The spectators cheered. Then several servants carried something into the center of the courtyard. A massive golden urn. Blue flames danced inside it. The fire looked dangerous, but it gave off no heat. The magical urn contained the names of every contestant. René approached it. Now. He smiled. Let fate decide. He plunged his hand directly into the blue flames. There was no reaction. He pulled out the first name. Nello. René drew another. Prince Jariel. Jariel stepped forward. Then. Nello. Polar's eyes widened. He glanced toward Nello. Polar looked just as surprised. Long Emo. Long Emo calmly closed the book he had been reading. And. René pulled out the 5th name. The teams continued to form. Eventually, another group was announced. General Gator. Gator stepped forward. Jian Shen. The powerful warrior joined him. Princess Feng Yu. She gracefully moved into position. 2 additional contestants completed their team. Then came another. Zika. The mysterious assassin stepped forward. Aarhiya. Aarhiya joined him. Prince Draken. Draken's eyes immediately moved toward Aarhiya. 2 more contestants completed their group. Finally, René reached into the urn again. Sanrea. Sanrea stepped forward with a smile. Then René drew another name. Emperor Kaenar. Sanrea's eyes lit up. Kaenar walked toward her. The moment he reached her, Sanrea grabbed his arm. Kaenar looked down at her hand. She smiled. Looks like we're partners. Kaenar gave a small smile. Apparently. Sanrea leaned closer. Maybe we'll finally have a chance to talk. Kaenar nodded. Perhaps. But his eyes wandered. Across the courtyard. Toward Aarhiya. Aarhiya was standing with his team. He tried very hard not to look in Kaenar's direction. But he could feel Kaenar watching him. His heart pounded. Sanrea noticed. Her smile slowly faded. She followed Kaenar's gaze. Her eyes landed on Aarhiya. Something inside her tightened. She didn't like this. Not at all. Yet she couldn't exactly complain. Not here. Not in front of everyone. So she simply tightened her grip around Kaenar's arm. Come on, she said brightly. Kaenar looked back at her. Let's get ready. Soon, the competitors were transported to the entrance of Tensis Cave. The enormous cave mouth towered before them like the entrance to another world. Cold air poured from inside. Torches had been placed along the path, but their flames seemed strangely small against the darkness. Thousands of spectators gathered behind the safety barriers. The representatives stood in their respective groups. Nello glanced toward Kaenar. Kaenar noticed. Their eyes met. Nello immediately looked away again. Kaenar frowned. I'm definitely talking to him after this. Nearby, Xianxia rolled his shoulders. Feng Yu calmly closed her eyes for a moment. Long Emo adjusted his robes. Draken stared into the cave with a faint, confident smile. Xianxia stood completely still. Aarhiya took a quiet breath. And Senrea remained beside Kaenar. Tutor Rene raised his hand. Representatives. The crowd fell silent. You have one objective. He pointed toward the darkness. Find the Virgin Ring. He lowered his hand. May the best kingdom win. The magical signal rang out. One by one, the teams began entering the cave. Kaenar took one last glance toward Aarhiya. Their eyes met for only a second. Aarhiya quickly looked away. Kaenar smiled faintly. Then he turned toward the darkness. Senrea followed closely beside him. And together, the representatives disappeared into the depths of Tensis Cave. Thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe to the channel for more episodes. Thank you very much.